Alright guys, a lot of you have asked that I go ahead and do a recording of this pour that I'm going to do, or casting for the Nostromo wall. This is a portion of the Nostromo bridge wall that I created several years back. I've actually pulled a couple castings from this. Here's the master right here. Well, this is the master cast. The master, the actual build itself, is tucked away safely in an air-conditioned storage unit. Right now, this is the original casting, which is complete. There's no blemishes or anything, so this is my master cast. I did pull one last night. To my dismay, there were some air bubbles that got caught in some of the tubing right here, which was awful. And so that one's going to be a scrap cast, which means that I'll clean it up with some epoxy and some other things, and I may use it, and again I may not, I don't know. One other thing I did notice though with this mold, basically this is the last time I'll use this mold. It's seen better days in terms of its longevity. It's still a good mold. It'll do a great pour if done correctly. The only thing is, when I took this mold and put it into storage while I was getting this room refitted for a studio, I failed to set it flat on a surface. There was actually another little mold, a thin mold, sitting right underneath it on this side. And after 3 months of sitting there, and you can't tell right here, but I'm gonna push down right here, there's a little bit of a bulge that comes out. So what happens is, when this liquid gets in here and it firms up, there's gonna be a wave right here. It'll be level, and then it's gonna wave up and then back down. And right in this area right here is horrible for that. Don't worry about that little piece right there. That's not going to be an issue. It's going to cause this whole component panel to bulge in and out, which when you see it cast in perspective, this whole area right here will actually go in and out and down, which will basically ruin the look of the finished piece. So I figured out a way to fix that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a elongated piece of sheet styrene, plastic styrene, and since this is all greebly work, I've already tested it with the last mold, but if I push it down just right there, about a minute before the cast begins to cure, and push it down to where I have enough that goes above the cast line, I should be able to keep it pushed down until it cures. And once it cures, then I can let go. You know, I have a heat gun and stuff like that. Some people say, take your heat gun and just hit this mold with the heat gun. Nope. I've tried that before. That don't work. So this is going to be the last time this particular mold is being used, and then I'll just make a new one if I want to make any more castings. I've learned a lot since making this mold. So the next mold will be even better. But for what I need for right now, I have a presentation at the end of the month. I need to have a nice prototype version of the cast made, because I am not sending out my resin master. That stays here. That does not get painted. That does not get touched. This is what I'll use either to make another mold out of, or use the master that I still have intact to make my mold. But this stays the way it is. So that explains that in a long story short, 6-7 minutes worth. Let's go ahead and get to making a cast out of this, and we'll just do it step by step. Now I've got the mold all prepped. I've dusted it with baby powder. For this particular type of mold material, it's the Mold Star material, is a platinum cure silicone. I usually don't use mold release with this. I haven't had any problems with it before when it comes to just dusting it with baby powder, getting rid of the excess, and then going ahead and making the pour. It does not stick to this type of mold. So I don't usually use mold release in this circumstance. So basically it's ready to go for the pour. One thing I'm going to show you is what I was talking about earlier, pushing this down with a sheet of styrene. So here's my little styrene piece right here. I'm literally going to push on that area to push it down, but I'm not going to do that until later on in the after the pour is complete. Right now my goal is to make the pour. Then I'm going to take a little stylus tool that works really well with a little ball head on it. You can't see it from here. I'm literally going to go ahead and trace out all of the detail. I know how much time I have, which is about 7 to 8 minutes. I'm not going to show all 7 to 8 minutes of my air bubble hunting on here. But for something like this, you know, if you had a vacuum chamber, it would work perfectly. But for me, since I don't have one, I have to do it the old-fashioned way and search them all out. But after my last pull, I know where my weak points are and what I need to concentrate on, particularly the wiring. I need to make sure I get the air out. And I had more time than I thought I did with the last pour. So I'm thinking that I'll have plenty of time to do that, plus get myself situated to push down on this until it cures solid. I mean, it's going to start to cure, but I can't pull up on this until it's solid, until I can't feel this thing move anymore. All right, guys, got my part A and my part B here. I'm going to take my part A and put it into my part B since it's easier to pour into. I'll mix it up and then we're going to go ahead and make this pour. So let's get to it. 64 ounces. No going back now. Set to the side. Bring this over here and we're going to mix it real quick. Now, what I do is there is a certain amount of transparency that shows up when it's mixed well. And I wait, especially for deep pours like this or deep mixes like this, especially with lettering on the outside. I try to look for lettering about midway down. If I can see through it to where it's midway down, I know it's mixing well. If it stays cloudy, I worry about it. Sometimes old casting material will stay cloudy. You don't want that. Right now it's clear all the way to the bottom, so I know it mixed well. I know I'm probably going to be not mixing it as long as I need to, but I don't have a choice. I have to pour it here quickly. So now you pick one spot and you pour. You don't pour all over the place. You pick one spot and you make a steady pour into that one spot. So I'm gonna keep talking because I don't want Facebook to pull my video because I have music playing in the background. But so far so good. The mix looks clean. You can sometimes tell when your casting mix isn't done well. You get a cloudy look to it. Like I just said, this is nice and clear. Nice and clear. Not that much air in it. That's great. I didn't throw any air in it when I mixed it. So now I'm reaching that point where I'm almost level at one side, but not exactly on the other. I don't want it to spill over. So I'm going to stop it right there. I have some more left, but now my objective now is to make sure the air bubbles are out. And that's going to be my goal from here on out with this piece. Let's see here. Oop, found another little piece of resin that was hiding in there. That's okay, let it float to the top, who cares? So I'll keep on going until I don't have any time left, and so far it's giving me the time I need. I'm not pushing down hard, I'm just letting the stylus sort of just hit the surface of all this. And you'll see little bubbles pop up. That means you hit an air pocket, and I'll go through it once or twice over again. You always think you haven't hit it good enough yet, and you get paranoid. Okay, now I'm starting to feel a little heat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this part up here. Whatever happens, happens at this point. I did the best I could with getting those air bubbles out of there. I think I did a good job. I'm much more confident this time around than I was last time. So, let's pour a little bit more. Same spot. I did the same spot. And you'll start seeing it gather on one side. Okay, it's starting to cloud up, so let's go ahead and get this guy going. Not exactly 64 ounces, but close enough. I'm gonna push it down right there. Go ahead and tap it on the sides a little bit while it's still curing. You never know, you might be able to free up a couple little hidden air bubbles in there. I do this with my smaller molds too. I'm shaking the camera, sorry about that. Steady it out a little bit. Anytime they're casting material, it's starting to do it now. You'll see it here in just a second. It's already curing in my container, so any second now it'll start finally curing on me. It's almost a relief when it cures, because you always want to make sure your mix is right, that you got your A's and B's, especially if you need a gram scale or something like that to measure it out right. Because the worst thing you can get is a translucent, here it goes. The worst thing you can get is a translucent cast. I've had those, I'm sure you guys have had them before, where you mixed a little bit of the B with too much of the A, or vice versa. That always sucks. The mold is still good. I mean, the cast is still good, but you can't really present it as being a nice looking cast, you know. So I gotta sit here and hold this until all of this basically starts to cure. Even though I can still, it's starting to cure solid, it's still liquid underneath. The surface, it's like it cures on the surface and then it goes downward. It feels like it anyway. Looks pretty level, honestly. Maybe I just moved it a little bit to the right or left from the last one I made a cast with, and I checked my surface on this table for it to be level, and it showed it was level. So basically what I do is I let up on it just a little bit to see whether or not the resin's taking effect or not. Resin's not taking effect, so I don't want to do that too much, because what happens is that resin is still very soft and very pliable. If I keep doing it, I might damage the look of the surface of the cast. I don't think it would work for everybody. It just happens to be a situation in which this little process of having to repair a warped mold works. So it's starting to firm up now. I can let go of it and it does not move as much. I'd say in another 2 or 3 minutes it will have a more solid cure, and I can actually let it go, and then I can get the heck out of here and let this cure, because right now, dudes, it's not fun. I actually cut and put a mask on because this was getting a little bit too much for me. Big castings like this, you don't want to stand over it. I don't recommend any of that. It's not the right thing to do. And if you do, wear gloves like I'm wearing, and wear a mask like I'm doing right now. Should have did that right from the get-go. It's the heat. It's not letting off that much heat. It's not, but it really is. You can feel it standing here. And I'm using an LED light, which doesn't put out any heat, so I know it's coming from the mold. See, now I can see steam rising up on my LED. There's steam coming up on my LED. I don't know if you guys can see it. You guys can't see it. But that's how much heat is being released. And I'm standing here holding this thing. It's not healthy, dude. You don't want to do this on a regular basis. It's the one and only, I did this last night and I actually walked away from it once it started curing. So I'm gonna let go of it one more time. That's good enough for me. I'll let that sit. I'm gonna get the heck out of here. And then when it cures, I'm gonna watch it. You might see me in about 12 hours. You might see me in 30 minutes. I don't know. But for right now, magic of video, it can be any time you don't know that. So, but that's the cast. That's how it works for me, at least. Other people might have their own way of doing it. This is how I do it. For the exception of this. This is a little bit of a quick fix to a to a mold that has had a slight dysfunction in the junction. So, all right, guys, let me get these gloves off because I'm sweating like crazy and get out of here. And I'll see you in a few minutes. Right, bye. All right, it's been several minutes later. It's been actually about, I'd say, 45 minutes later since I poured this. It's cured, it's still warm, but no warping at all. It's solid all the way through. It's not bending up. It's not breaking free from the sides of the mold. It's not bowing out or anything. So I think that filling it up all the way to the top and letting it cure was the way to go. So right now I'm gonna go ahead and cut this piece sticking out. I'm just gonna describe it just like I would if I was cutting styrene. I'll just do it a couple times here. Watch your hands. Don't. This is not something that you do on a regular basis. This is just me. There. So, sand that down a little bit. You wouldn't even know it's there. So it's been 24 hours since I just poured that cast. Almost exactly 24 hours. I'm looking at the clock now. Unfortunately, I demolded it this morning. I got excited. I got antsy. I wanted to make sure it came out right so I can keep a peaceful mind the rest of the workday. Because it's a lot of money. 64 ounces of casting material into a mold that's worn out to make a good cast from it is quite stressful because there's a lot of money involved in that. It's quite an investment. So if it don't come out, that's like taking money and flushing it down the toilet. So I wanted to make sure that I can go to work with a peaceful mind. And fortunately, I did. It came out great. For the last mold out of this, or for the last cast out of this mold, I think that it turned out wonderful. All the details are there. Everything you need is there. The tubing is all intact. It has a smooth back. It's going to be great for this sample I'm sending up to Washington D.C. at the end of this month. The Museum of Science Fiction is having a expo for that weekend, of Memorial Day weekend, and they're going to have a little Alien 40th anniversary celebration there, and they're going to have a bunch of stuff on display, and they were nice enough and kind enough to ask if I would have anything to show, and I agreed, and I had a bunch of displays I wish to go ahead and show off. And part of that's going to be the portion of the Nostromo. The panels from the far back walls of the Nostromo bridge are going to be on display. There is going to be a corridor piece on display. Also, there is going to be an EVA suit, a full casting of an EVA suit on display. So there's going to be some nice stuff there. If I can find anything else that I have some extras, I'm also going to throw it in there and let those guys figure out how to display it. All this stuff's getting returned back to me, of course. They better. The guys already understand that. They're going to send it back to me, hopefully all in one piece. I don't see how in the world they can break this thing. This thing is like a brick. But let's go ahead and take a look at it, and I'll stop rambling, and we can check it out and see how it turned out. So it was the final cast of this mold. It's the one we poured last night, and it came out great. I don't have many complaints about it at all. Of course, it's got its little tiny, air bubble type things, little teeny tiny micro bubble things going on here. That's nothing that's easily cleaned up. I don't have a problem with that. When I really have a problem is when you have big old gaps of air getting trapped in certain areas, and it just absolutely ruins it. There's some circuitry here that's broken because of the casting material didn't take. That's okay too, because this is all greeblies and it's supposed to be chaotic. So a little sanding of that area down here and around, that will look fine. That's not going to be a problem too, so I don't stress about that. I always like craziness like this because you can get away with little mistakes in the casting. You don't have to concern yourself too much about it, especially since it's going to be like a dry brush with different types of colors going through it. You're not going to notice once the little window panel is over it. If anybody's noticed how crazy the panels look in the actual film, It's just a lot of nonsense in a case, basically. You'll notice that little white piece of styrene right here. That's where I was holding it down the night before. That's what's left of the styrene right there. It pushed through, but you see, you can see that little band of cord that's over it. It cast over it like it's holding it in place. So this actually looks like part of the greebly work. Once it's all painted up and everything, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. So that was a fortunate spot for this mold to have a fault in, because it was anywhere else I couldn't have gotten away with it. But right there, I was able to get away with it. That's luck. So, but anyway, I won't take all day on this, but there it is. That is the cast of the wall for the Nostromo, the back wall. Let me get the other two together, and we'll see what it looks like when they're all set one right after another. I got 3 panels all together. Hold on a second, I'll set that up. Alright guys, here is the completed wall. This is the back wall. This is without all the window panels and all the little details in it so far. This is just the walls themselves, the casted pieces. Let's just do a little flyby here. Kind of like what they did in the movie. So I think we're going the opposite way, I believe. It gives you an idea of the details. What's that? That's another piece that's going to the show. Let me get that guy out. I just finished another cast of him. Hold on just a second. Let me get that corridor out of here. So here's a finished cast. All of it's cast. Full casting of this corridor piece. I think a lot of you have seen this before, but I've never really shown one in a video. But each one of the tubes are a separate piece. The main center is the centerpiece. Some of the sprockets are a little bit bad because of the casting, but I kind of like that. It kind of looks like it's worn down and broken in pieces and stuff, like they were put on there to hold the thing. So I'm not too concerned about that. This stuff's all cast. It's like a greebly mix and then made a mold of and cast. Some of it has little areas that didn't cast all the way, but I kind of like that again. It looks like an incomplete piece of machinery. Sometimes you can get away with that. You can get away with some things not casting fully, but it works with the chaos that you're creating. This is nothing but a machine chaotic mess that looks great when finished. So let me move this guy out of the way. Yeah, that's where I stand right now with the Nostromo for the actual. Wow, sheesh, that's big. Yeah, that's for the that's for the bridge. So there'll be a ceiling to it. It will be all contained one way or another. I don't know how and when and how it will get to that point, but it'll get to that point. I just remember a few years ago I didn't even have this, so you know, I'm feeling pretty good right now about it. So thanks guys for watching. Thanks for putting up with my babbling, and I'll talk to you later.